Chapter 1. I lost my husband, my home, and my entire family in less than 30 days. But what broke me was not the affair. It was who he chose, my own sister. And just when I thought I had nothing left, I found out my entire life had been built on a lie. My mother had been hiding the truth about my father for years. The man I thought abandoned me had spent his life trying to come back. By the time I uncovered everything, it was too late for him. But not too late for me, because while they were busy destroying my life, they had no idea they were setting me free and walking straight into their own downfall. And this is how I lost everything and finally took my life back. People think betrayal begins with a single moment, one message, one mistake, one bad decision. It doesn't. At least it didn't for me. By the time I finally saw the truth, it had already been living in my house for months, maybe longer. It was in the silence between conversations, in the things that went missing, in the way I started questioning my own instincts and then talking myself out of it. My name is Celeste Warren. I was 39 when everything unraveled, though, if I am honest, it started long before that. I worked as a veterinary technician and operations manager at a small animal clinic outside Raleigh, North Carolina. It was the kind of job that grounded you. Sick pets worried owners long days that left you too tired to overthink your life. I had been married to my husband Daniel Brooks for 11 years. We were not perfect, but we were stable. We had a modest home in a quiet neighborhood, a shared routine, shared bills, shared plans that felt realistic. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic, just safe. Or at least that was what I believed. Looking back, the first signs were almost invisible. Daniel started carrying his phone everywhere, not just in the usual way. He would take it into the bathroom, flip it face down, whenever he set it on the table, check it in short, distracted bursts like he was waiting for something but did not want me to see it. When I asked who kept texting him so late, he would shrug and say, "Work," then change the subject before I could ask anything else. He became shorter with me too. Not cruel, just distant. Answers that used to turn into conversations now ended in one or two words. There were evenings when he would say he was working late, but something about the timing felt off. Calls that went straight to voicemail, texts that got a reply an hour later with no explanation. I told myself it was stress. The mortgage industry had been unpredictable, and Daniel had always been sensitive to financial pressure. It made sense. It was reasonable. I clung to reasonable. Then there were the small things with money. One evening I sat at the kitchen table going through our monthly expenses, something I had done 100 times before. I noticed that our credit card statement had not come in the mail. At first I thought it was delayed. It happened sometimes. But when I checked our online account, there were a few withdrawals that did not line up with anything I recognized. They were not large. That was the thing. Small amounts spaced out over weeks. Easy to miss unless you were looking carefully. I remember asking him about it that night. He was leaning against the counter scrolling through his phone. I said I noticed a few charges I do not recognize. Do you know what those are? He did not even look up right away. When he finally did, his expression was already set, like he had expected the question. "I took care of it," he said. "It is nothing you need to worry about. Nothing you need to worry about." That should have bothered me more than it did. But instead I nodded. I let it go, because that was what I had always done. Keep things smooth, keep things stable. And then there was my sister. Emily had always been complicated. 2 years younger than me, restless, charming in a way that made people forgive her before she even asked. She never stayed in one place too long. Jobs, cities, relationships. Everything was temporary for her. But suddenly she was around all the time. She said she had picked up freelance marketing clients in the area, said it was easier to stay close to family. She started dropping by the house in the middle of the week sometimes without calling first. She would bring coffee or takeout, or just show up and make herself comfortable like she still lived there. At first, I was happy to see her. I had always tried to be a good sister. It was what my mother expected of me. But then I started noticing the way she and Daniel interacted. It was subtle, too subtle to accuse. They would laugh a little too easily at the same things. Their conversations would lower in volume when I walked into the room, then pick back up with a different tone. Once I came into the living room and found them sitting closer than I expected, both of them shifting apart just a little too quickly. I remember standing there holding a basket of laundry, feeling something tighten in my chest. Emily smiled at me like nothing had happened. "You scared me," she said lightly. "I did not hear you come in." I forced a smile back, told myself I was imagining things. That is the thing about betrayal when it grows slowly. You become part of it, not because you want to be, but because you keep choosing not to see. A week later, we had dinner at my mother's house. My mother, Carol, had always been the center of everything. Strong opinions, strong presence, and a very clear idea of how her daughters should behave. I had spent most of my life trying to meet those expectations. Emily showed up late, as usual. Nearly 40 minutes after we were supposed to start eating. I had already set the table twice. The food was getting cold. When she finally walked in, she barely apologized, just dropped her bag on a chair and said traffic was a nightmare. I said, "You could have called." It came out softer than I intended, but it was enough. My mother did not even hesitate. "Celeste," she said, "give your sister a break. You know how busy she is." Busy? Emily was smiling again like she had already been forgiven. I felt that familiar shift, the one where I stepped back even when I knew I was right. "You are the older one," my mother added. "You need to be more understanding." I nodded, because that was easier than arguing. It had always been easier. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and thought about how many times I had heard that sentence. "You are the older one." It had shaped more of my life than I wanted to admit. A few days later, I found the earring. It was small, silver, simple, the kind of thing you would not notice unless you were looking for it. It was on the floor near our bed, half hidden under the nightstand. I picked it up and turned it over in my hand. It was not mine. I did not own anything like it. For a second, I just stood there holding it, waiting for a logical explanation to come to me. Something simple, something that would make it all make sense again. Maybe it got caught on his jacket, maybe someone dropped it when they visited, maybe I was overthinking. I walked into the kitchen where Daniel was. I held it out and said, "Do you know where this came from?" He glanced at it, then at me. "No idea," he said. "Probably yours." "It is not mine." He shrugged. "Then I do not know. Maybe it got tracked in or something." Tracked in. The explanation did not even try to be convincing, and somehow that was worse. Before I could say anything else, his phone lit up on the counter. I was not trying to look, but I did. Emily. Her name was right there on the screen. Something shifted in that moment. Not fully, not enough to break everything open, but enough to crack the surface. That night I checked our account again. Another small withdrawal. I stared at the numbers longer than I should have, trying to find a pattern, trying to prove to myself that there was nothing there. But there was. It was not random. It was consistent, careful, planned. I felt a quiet kind of fear settle in. Not panic. Not yet. Just a steady, growing awareness that something was very wrong. And for the first time, I did not immediately push it away. A few days later, I left work early. It was not planned. One of our appointments canceled, and I had a headache that would not go away. I texted Daniel to let him know I would be home sooner than usual, but he did not respond. That was not unusual anymore. The house was quiet when I walked in. No television, no music. Just a stillness that felt almost too deliberate. Then I heard it. Laughter. Soft but clear. Coming from the living room. I froze in the entryway, my keys still in my hand. For a second, I considered calling out, announcing that I was home like I always did. But I did not. I took a few steps forward instead. The closer I got, the clearer it became. Two voices. Familiar. Comfortable. I turned the corner, and there they were. Daniel and Emily. Too close. Not just sitting near each other, but leaning into something that did not belong to me anymore. There was no confusion, no room for misunderstanding. Not in the way his hand rested where it should not in the way she looked at him. They saw me at the same time. Everything stopped. The laughter disappeared. The movement froze. No one said anything. Daniel did not rush to explain. Emily did not pull away fast enough to make it look innocent. They just stared at me like they had been caught in a moment they both knew could not be undone. I waited. For an apology. For a denial. For anything. Nothing came. And that was when I understood. The missing money. The late nights. The silence. The earring. My mother's voice in my head telling me to be understanding. To keep the peace. To not make things bigger than they needed to be. It was never nothing. It was all of it. Layered, hidden, and sitting right in front of me. I did not scream. I did not throw anything. I just stood there feeling something inside me go very still. Because the worst part was not that my husband had betrayed me. It was that my sister was standing next to him when he did. And in that moment, I realized none of this had happened by accident. Chapter 2. I do not remember how long I stood there before I finally spoke. My voice did not sound like mine when it came out. How long? Daniel blinked like he needed time to understand the question. What? How long has this been going on? There was a pause, heavy and stretched thin between the three of us. Emily looked at him, not at me. That was the first answer. Daniel exhaled slowly, like he was already tired of the conversation. It is not what you think. I felt something tighten in my chest, but my voice stayed steady. Then explain it to me. He rubbed his face like I was the inconvenience. It just happened. It was not planned. That word again. Not planned. I let out a quiet breath. Do not lie to me. Not now. Emily shifted, finally stepping back, grabbing her bag like she had somewhere else to be. I should go, she said softly. I looked at her. No, you should stay. For a second I thought she might. Then she shook her head. This is between you two. Of course it was. She walked past me without touching me, without even meeting my eyes. The door closed behind her, and the sound felt final in a way I could not explain. I turned back to Daniel. Say it. He hesitated, then shrugged. A few months? A few months. The words landed, but they did not feel real. And the money. His jaw tightened. What about it? I stepped closer, my hands shaking now, even if my voice was not. The charges, the withdrawals, the missing statements. What about that? He looked at me like I was the one being unreasonable. I handled things. You handled things. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You emptied our savings. It is not empty. Then show me. He did not move. That was answer enough. I felt something inside me shift again, something colder this time. You planned this. He shook his head. It was not like that. Then what was it like? He did not answer right away. When he finally did, his tone was flat, almost bored. You would not understand. Try me. He looked at me for a long second, then said it. You have been the same for years. Everything is predictable. Safe, controlled. I needed something different. I stared at him. So you slept with my sister. It is not just that. Then what is it? He did not raise his voice. That somehow made it worse. It just happened. With her, things feel different. Different. I repeated the word in my head like if I said it enough times, it would make sense. You lied to me. You took our money. You stopped paying the mortgage. His expression flickered for the first time. It is temporary. How many payments did you miss? He did not answer. How many? 2. I felt my stomach drop. 2 months. The letters. I never saw them. I took care of it. You hid them. He did not deny it. For a moment, the room felt too small, like there was not enough air. I turned away from him because if I kept looking, I might break in a way I could not come back from. I grabbed my keys from the counter. Where are you going? He asked. I do not know. That was the truth. I walked out before he could say anything else. I drove without a destination for almost an hour before I pulled into a parking lot and just sat there. My hands were still shaking my chest tight, but the tears would not come. It was like my body had decided that feeling nothing was safer. When I finally went back home, the house felt different. Not just empty, hollow. Daniel was gone. A few of his things were missing, not everything, just enough to make it clear he was not coming back that night. I did not look for him. Instead, I sat down at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I logged into our accounts. I went through everything, checking, savings, credit cards. By the time I finished, it was almost midnight. The savings account was almost gone. Not all at once. That would have been obvious. It had been drained slowly in small amounts over time. Transfers that blended in with regular expenses. Charges that did not raise alarms unless you were paying attention. He had been doing this for months, maybe longer. I scrolled back further, my eyes burning. There it was. A pattern. Consistent, careful, deliberate. This was not a mistake. It was not a moment of weakness. It was a plan. I closed the laptop and sat there in the dark. That was when the fear finally hit. Not about him, not about Emily, about everything else. The house. I picked up my phone and called the bank the next morning as soon as they opened. I explained who I was, gave them our account information, and asked about the mortgage. There was a pause on the other end. Mom, your account is currently past due. I swallowed. How past due? 2 payments. You are in delinquency status. My grip tightened on the phone. I never received any notices. We have sent multiple letters to the address on file. I closed my eyes. Is there any way to fix this? We can discuss repayment options, but you would need to bring the account current or set up a plan immediately. I spent the next 20 minutes trying to negotiate something. Anything. Partial payments, extensions, temporary hardship. Every option required money I no longer had. I hung up and sat there staring at the wall. I am not just losing my marriage, I am losing my home. The thought came quietly, but it settled deep. I called my mother. She picked up on the second ring. Celeste, I was just about to call you. Of course she was. I took a breath. I need help. There was a pause. What happened? Daniel and Emily. I could not finish the sentence. She sighed. I had a feeling something was going on. Something in her tone made my chest tighten. I said, he took money. A lot of it. He stopped paying the mortgage. I might lose the house. Another pause. And then she said it. What did you do to push him that far? For a second, I thought I had misheard her. What? You heard me. Things like this do not happen out of nowhere. I gripped the phone harder. He had an affair. With Emily. I know, she said quietly. You know. Emily told me. Of course she did. And you did not think to tell me. It was not my place. I let out a hollow laugh. Your daughter is sleeping with my husband, and that is not your place. Lower your voice, she snapped. There is no need to make this uglier than it already is. uglier. I closed my eyes. I might lose my house. Well, she said, maybe this is a wake-up call. You have been too rigid for a long time. Men do not like feeling trapped. I felt something inside me go very still again. So this is my fault. I did not say that. You did not have to. Another silence. Then she softened her tone just slightly. Emily is going through a lot right now. You need to try to understand that. I pulled the phone away from my ear for a second just to breathe. I am not asking you to choose sides, I said slowly. I am asking you for help. She hesitated. I cannot get involved financially. It would only complicate things. Of course, and I think it would be best if you handled this quietly. There is no need to involve other people. Do not make it look bad. I understood what she meant. Do not embarrass the family. I lowered the phone. I have to go. Celeste. I hung up before she could say anything else. That was the second time something broke, and this time it did not hurt the same way. It was quieter, colder. The next few weeks blurred together. I went to work because I had to. Animals still needed care. Appointments still filled the schedule. Life did not stop just because mine had fallen apart. But I was not the same. I forgot things. Small things at first, then bigger ones. A follow-up call I never made. A medication I almost gave at the wrong dosage before catching myself at the last second. My coworker Leah pulled me aside one afternoon. Are you okay? I nodded automatically. I am fine. You do not look fine. I forced a smile. Just tired. She did not believe me, but she let it go. The final notice came 2 weeks later. I held the envelope in my hands for a long time before opening it. There were no surprises left in it. Just confirmation. If the past due amount was not paid, foreclosure proceedings would begin. I did not have the money. There was no miracle coming. Packing the house felt like erasing myself. I moved through each room, deciding what I could take and what I had to leave behind. Furniture, photos, small things that held pieces of my life. I did not cry. Not when I boxed up our wedding pictures, not when I cleared out the closet we had shared, not when I locked the door for the last time. Leah helped me find a place. It was a transitional housing program for women in Charlotte. Temporary, structured, safe in a way that did not feel like safety at all. The intake process was quiet and efficient. Forms, questions, background checks. I was assigned a bed in a shared room, a small metal frame with a thin mattress, a locker for my belongings. That was it. That was my life now. I sat on the edge of the bed that first night staring at the floor. No house, no husband, no family I could rely on. I felt like I had been removed from my own story, like everything that had defined me had been taken, and all that was left was this version of me I did not recognize. Days passed. I followed the rules, attended the required meetings, did what I was told. I kept my head down. It was easier that way. Then one afternoon, during a routine check-in, the case manager looked at my file and paused. Her name was Monica Reyes. She had a calm voice, the kind that made people trust her. She flipped through a few pages, then looked up at me. Celeste, she said, there is something here I need to ask you about. I felt that familiar tension in my chest. What is it? She hesitated for a moment. Someone has been trying to locate you. I frowned. Who? She checked the file again, making sure. A man named Harold Whitaker. The name meant nothing to me. But for the first time in weeks, the feeling in my chest was not fear. It was something else. Something I had almost forgotten. A question. Chapter 3. The name stayed with me long after I left Monica's office. I repeated it in my head that night while lying on the narrow bed in the shared room staring at the ceiling that did not belong to me. Harold Whitaker. It did not connect to anything in my life, not my work, not my past, not anyone I had ever known. Still, it felt intentional, not random, not like the chaos that had swallowed everything else. The next day, Monica handed me a number. "He left contact information," she said gently. "You can call if you want. There is no pressure." I stared at the paper for a long time before folding it and slipping it into my pocket. I waited until that evening. I stepped outside the building, away from the noise, away from the other women, and dialed. The phone rang twice. "Harold Whitaker," a calm, older voice answered. I hesitated for half a second. "This is Celeste Warren." There was a pause. Not confusion, recognition. "I have been trying to find you," he said. "Why?" Another pause, longer this time. "It would be better if we spoke in person." I almost said no. Every instinct I had built over the past few weeks told me not to trust anything unexpected. But something else pushed through. "When?" I asked. "Tomorrow, if you are available." We agreed to meet at a small office building in downtown Charlotte. I did not sleep much that night. The next afternoon, I took the bus across the city, watching unfamiliar streets pass by, trying to steady the unease building in my chest. The office was on the third floor. Clean, quiet, professional in a way that felt distant from everything my life had become. A receptionist greeted me and asked me to wait. A few minutes later, a man stepped out. He was in his 60s, neatly dressed, composed. "Ms. Warren," he said. I stood. "Mr. Whitaker." He nodded and gestured toward his office. "Please come in." I sat across from him, my hands resting in my lap to hide the tension in them. He studied me for a moment, not in a way that felt invasive, but like he was confirming something. "You look like him," he said quietly. Something in my chest tightened. "Like who?" He folded his hands on the desk. "Daniel Mercer." The name hit me in a way I was not prepared for. "My father is not part of my life," I said immediately. "He left when I was a child." Whitaker did not react with surprise. "I know that is what you were told." The room felt smaller. "What does that mean?" He reached into a folder and slid a document across the desk, but I did not look at it yet. "It means he did not leave voluntarily." I shook my head before he could continue. "That is not true." "Ms. Warren," he said calmly, "I worked with your father for over 20 years. I was his attorney. I handled his business, his estate, and his personal affairs. I can assure you he did not walk away from you." My heart was starting to pound now, fast and uneven. "Then where was he?" I asked. "Because he was not there." Whitaker leaned back slightly, choosing his words carefully. "He tried to be." I let out a sharp breath. "I do not understand." "He wrote letters," Whitaker said. "He sent gifts. He attempted to reach you multiple times over the years." I felt my hands go cold. "I never received anything." "I know." The way he said it made my stomach drop. "What do you mean you know?" He paused, then continued. "Every letter was returned. Every package was sent back. Every attempt was blocked." I stared at him. "By who?" He did not answer right away. "You can probably answer that yourself." My mind went somewhere I did not want it to go. "No," I said quietly. "No, that does not make sense." Whitaker watched me, not pushing, not interrupting. "My mother would not do that." He did not argue. He simply reached for another item in the folder. "A few months before your father passed, he wrote something he asked me to keep until I found you." He slid an envelope across the desk. It had my name on it, written in handwriting I did not recognize but somehow felt familiar. My fingers hesitated before touching it. "I think you should read it," Whitaker said. I picked it up. For a second, I just held it there, feeling the weight of something I could not yet define. Then I opened it. The paper inside was slightly worn, like it had been handled more than once. I started reading. Celeste. If you are reading this, then I finally found a way back to you, even if it is too late for me to say these words in person. I have never stopped thinking about you, not for a single day. The words blurred for a moment. I blinked, forcing myself to keep going. I was told you did not want to see me, that you were better off without me. I believed it at first because I thought that if it came from your mother, it had to be true. But I never stopped trying. I sent letters. I sent gifts. I asked for pictures. I asked for anything that would let me be part of your life, even from a distance. Every time I was told no. My throat tightened. If I could go back, I would fight harder. I would not accept the silence as an answer. But I thought I was respecting your wishes. I thought I was doing the right thing. I am so sorry. I put the paper down for a second, my hands shaking now. Whitaker said nothing. I picked it back up. You were always the best part of my life, even when I was not allowed to be part of yours. I hope one day you will understand that I did not leave you. I was kept away from you. I love you. Always have. Dad. The room was completely silent when I finished. I stared at the last word longer than I should have. Dad. A word that had never really meant anything to me. Until now. I thought he abandoned me. I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Whitaker nodded. I know. I shook my head slowly. All these years, you were given a version of the story that was not true. I felt something break open inside me, something deeper than what had happened with Daniel, deeper than what Emily had done. This was not just betrayal. This was an entire life built on something false. I wiped at my face, only then realizing I was crying. What happened to him? I asked. Whitaker's expression softened. He built a company in San Diego, logistics software. It started small, but it grew. He did well for himself. I swallowed. And he died. 3 years ago. The number hit me. 3 years. He never stopped asking about you, Whitaker added quietly. I closed my eyes. Too late. Everything was too late. There is something else you need to know, Whitaker said. I opened my eyes again, bracing myself. Your father created a trust. Most of his estate was placed into it before his passing. I frowned slightly. Why are you telling me this? Because you are the beneficiary? For a moment, I did not understand the words. What? The trust was structured to pass to you. He left everything to you. I stared at him. That is not possible. It is. I shook my head again, overwhelmed. No. He did not even know me. He knew enough. I let out a shaky breath. And no one told me. Whitaker hesitated. That brings me to something more complicated. I felt my stomach tighten again. What? A few years before your father passed, someone else reached out to him. My chest went cold. Who? Whitaker met my eyes. Your sister. Everything inside me went still. Emily. He nodded. She contacted him directly. She said she wanted to reconnect. At first, your father was hopeful. He thought it might lead to you as well. I could barely breathe. What happened? She asked for money, he said carefully. Said she was struggling. He helped her, more than once. I closed my eyes. Of course she did. Did she ever mention me? Not in a way that led to contact, Whitaker said. Eventually, she stopped responding. I let out a hollow laugh that did not sound like mine. So, she found him, took what she could, and disappeared. Whitaker did not correct me. And then he changed the trust, I said slowly. Yes. The pieces were coming together now, forming something I could not ignore. Emily had known. Before everything. Before the affair. Before Daniel. She had known about my father. About what he had. And she had kept it from me. I opened my eyes again, looking at Whitaker. "So this is not just about money." "No," he said quietly. "It is not." I leaned back in the chair, feeling the weight of everything settle in. Daniel had not been the beginning. Emily had not been a sudden betrayal. My mother had not been simply unfair. This had been built over years, layer by layer, lie by lie. "I thought I lost everything," I said. Whitaker studied me for a moment. "You lost what you were led to believe was yours." I sat there in silence. For the first time since everything had fallen apart, I did not feel like I was standing in the ruins of my life. I felt like I was standing at the edge of something else, something I had never been allowed to see before. And I was no longer just the woman who had been betrayed. I was the woman who was finally starting to understand why. Chapter 4. Understanding something does not fix it. It just changes the way it hurts. The days after my meeting with Harold Whitaker felt different, but not easier. The chaos in my life had not magically disappeared. I still woke up in a narrow bed that was not mine, still followed rules that reminded me I had lost everything I used to control. But now there was something else under the surface. Clarity. A few days later, I sat across from Whitaker again, this time with a stack of documents in front of me. "This is a temporary distribution from the trust," he explained, his voice steady, patient. "It is structured to help you stabilize your situation while we finalize the rest of the estate." I stared at the papers. It all looked official, dense, filled with terms I did not fully understand. "Do I need to sign all of this?" "Not immediately," he said. "You should read it first. Ask questions. This is your asset. You need to understand how it works." I let out a quiet breath. "I have never dealt with anything like this." "I know," he said. "That is why we take it one step at a time." I picked up one of the pages, scanning it. "What about taxes?" "There will be some implications depending on how funds are distributed," he said. "We will structure it in a way that minimizes your exposure, but you will need a financial advisor." The words felt heavy. Advisor. Trust. Distribution. This was not just money. It was responsibility. What happens if I make the wrong decision? Whitaker looked at me for a moment. "You will not," he said. "Not if you take your time." I nodded slowly, though the fear did not leave. Signing those documents felt nothing like relief. It felt like stepping into a life I had never prepared for. A week later, I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment in Durham. It was nothing like the house I had lost. No yard, no extra space, no shared history built into the walls. Just a quiet, clean space with white walls and a view of a parking lot. But it was mine. The first night I sat on the floor with a takeout container and my laptop open, checking my account again, and again, and again. The numbers were there, real, more than I had ever had access to before, and yet I felt no sense of security. Every time I thought about spending anything beyond the absolute minimum, something inside me tightened. What if it disappears? What if I lose this too? I started tracking every dollar, writing things down, double-checking transactions, refreshing the screen like it might suddenly change. It was not about greed. It was about fear. Work helped. Leah had connected me with a veterinarian named Dr. Naomi Carter, who owned a small clinic outside the city. She needed someone experienced, someone who could handle both patient care and operations. During my first day, she walked me through the space, pointing out equipment, introducing me to staff. "I heard you have been through a lot," she said at one point, her tone calm but not intrusive. "We keep things simple here. Do your job, take care of the animals, and we will figure out the rest as we go." I nodded. "That sounds good." She smiled slightly. It usually is. The routine grounded me again. The smell of disinfectant, the sound of animals, the rhythm of appointments. For a few hours each day, I could focus on something outside of myself. And slowly, I started to feel steady again. Not whole, not healed, but functional. That was enough for now. Then my mother called. I stared at her name on the screen for a long time before answering. "Hello." Her voice was softer than I remembered. "Celeste." I did not respond right away. "I have been thinking about you," she continued. "We need to talk." There it was. Not an apology, not accountability, a need. "I do not think that is a good idea," I said. "We are family." The word felt different now. "We can meet," I said finally. "Public place." She agreed immediately. We met at a small cafe in Chapel Hill. She was already there when I arrived, sitting straight, composed, like nothing had changed. When she saw me, her expression shifted just enough to show concern. "You look tired." "I am fine." I sat down across from her, leaving space between us. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I did. "Why?" She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "Why did you lie to me about my father?" Her expression tightened. "I did not lie." I held her gaze. "You told me he left. You told me he did not want to be part of my life." She shifted in her seat. "That is what I believed was best for you." I felt a flicker of anger, sharp but controlled. "You blocked his letters." She looked away for a second. "He was disruptive. He would have confused you." "You returned his gifts." "He was trying to buy his way back in." I leaned forward slightly. "You kept him away from me." Her eyes snapped back to mine. "I protected you." There it was. The certainty. The conviction. "I protected you from instability," she continued. "From disappointment. From a man who did not know how to be consistent." I let out a slow breath. "He tried," I said. "For years." She shook her head. "You do not know that." "I do." Her lips pressed together. "And Emily," I said. Something flickered across her face. "What about her?" "You always chose her." "That is not true." "It is." I held her gaze, not backing down this time. "You excused everything she did. You expected me to adjust, to understand, to make things easier for her." "Because you are stronger," she said immediately. I let the silence sit between us. "That is not a reason," I said finally. "It is," she insisted. "Families survive because someone holds them together. And that someone was always me." She did not deny it. For the first time, I saw it clearly, not as a series of isolated moments, as a pattern, a system I had been placed into without ever agreeing to it. "I am not doing that anymore," I said. Her expression hardened slightly. "What does that mean?" "It means I am not responsible for fixing things. Not for you. Not for her." Her voice sharpened. "You cannot just walk away from your family." "I am not walking away," I said. "I am setting boundaries." She leaned back, studying me like she did not recognize the person sitting in front of her. "You sound different." "I am." Another silence. Then she said it. "Does this have something to do with money?" I felt a cold clarity settle in. "No." "I heard you came into something," she continued carefully. "We should discuss how to handle that. As a family. There it was, not concern, control. "This is exactly what I mean," I said. "I am your mother," she said, her tone firm. "I have a right to be involved." "No, you do not." The words came out steady. "You will not have access to my finances. You will not make decisions for me, and you will not use Emily as an excuse to pull me back into something that hurt me." Her face went still. "You are making a mistake." "Maybe," I said, "but it will be my mistake." We sat there, the distance between us wider than the table. For the first time in my life, I did not feel the need to fix it. I stood up. "I have to go." "Celeste." I paused, but I did not sit back down. "I hope one day you understand," she said. I looked at her for a moment. "I already do." Then I left. The next few months were about rebuilding. Not everything at once, piece by piece. Whitaker connected me with a financial advisor named Marcus Hale. He walked me through the structure of the trust, the timelines, the distributions. "This is not about spending," he told me during our first meeting. "It is about preserving and growing what you have been given." "I am not used to having anything to preserve," I admitted. He nodded. "That makes you more careful. That is not a bad thing." Still, I checked my accounts constantly, questioned every decision. Second, guessed even small purchases. It would take time. Somewhere in the middle of all of it, I went to the shelter to drop off supplies. That was where I saw him, a medium-sized dog with gray fur and tired eyes sitting quietly in the corner of his enclosure. He did not bark, did not jump, he just watched. I crouched down in front of him. "Hey." He tilted his head slightly. The volunteer smiled. "He has been here a while," she said. "Older. People usually want younger dogs." I reached my hand through the bars. He stepped forward slowly, then leaned into my touch. Something about that moment felt familiar, like two things that had been overlooked finding each other. "I will take him," I said before I could overthink it. A week later, Walter was sleeping on the floor of my apartment, his steady breathing filling the silence in a way that made it feel less empty. Life was not what it used to be, but it was mine. One evening, Leah called. "You will not believe what I heard," she said. I sat on the couch, Walter resting his head on my foot. "What?" "Daniel and Emily," she said. "Things are not going well." I did not respond right away. "They are having money problems," she continued. "Big ones. I heard something about loans, maybe even legal trouble." I stared at the wall. "That is not my problem." "I know," she said. "I just thought you should know." I nodded, even though she could not see me. "Thanks." After I hung up, I sat there in the quiet. For a long time, I had thought I wanted things to go back to the way they were. Now the idea felt distant, unnecessary. I did not want that life anymore. I wanted something else, something that belonged to me without anyone controlling it, shaping it, or taking pieces of it when I was not looking. And for the first time, that felt possible. Chapter 5. Life did not change overnight, but it started to settle into something steady. I kept my routines. Work in the morning, paperwork in the afternoon, quiet evenings at home with Walter stretched across the floor like he had always belonged there. I stopped checking my accounts every hour. Not because the fear was gone, but because I was learning how to live with it without letting it control me. The updates about Daniel and Emily came slowly, never from them, always from the edges of my old life. Leah was the first to mention it again. "I heard more," she said one evening over the phone. "It is getting worse." I leaned against the kitchen counter watching Walter chew on one of his toys. "What happened?" "They tried to invest in something," she said. "Real estate, I think. It went bad. Really bad." I did not say anything. There is a guy involved, she continued. Maddox Keene. Apparently, he is not the kind of person you want to owe money to. There is talk about lawsuits, maybe more than one. I closed my eyes for a second. So they lost everything. Not everything, Leah said, but enough, and they owe more than they can cover. I let out a slow breath. That is their situation to deal with. I know, she said gently. I just thought you should hear it from someone who is not going to twist it. I appreciated that more than I could explain. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet for a while. I had imagined this moment once back when everything was fresh and raw. I had imagined hearing that they were struggling, that things had fallen apart for them, and feeling some kind of satisfaction. I felt none of that now, just distance. Weeks passed before I saw her again. It was a Saturday afternoon. I had just come back from the grocery store, arms full of bags, keys in my hand, when I noticed someone standing near the entrance of my building. At first, I did not recognize her. Her hair was pulled back carelessly, her clothes wrinkled, her posture different, smaller somehow. Then she looked up. Emily. She straightened when she saw me like she had been waiting. Celeste. I stopped a few feet away. How did you find me? She shifted, uncomfortable. I asked around. Of course she did. I set the bags down slowly, buying myself a second. What do you want? Her eyes filled with something that might have been desperation. I need to talk to you. I almost said no. Every instinct I had told me to walk past her, to go inside, to close the door, and leave her standing there with whatever consequences she had created for herself. But I stayed. Talk. She glanced around. Can we go inside? No. The word came out calm, final. Her shoulders dropped slightly. Okay. For a moment, she just stood there like she did not know where to begin. Then it came out all at once. Everything fell apart, she said. Daniel lied to me. About money, about everything. I thought we were building something and it just collapsed. I listened, but I did not react. We lost the investment, she continued. We owe people money, real money. And now there are legal notices and I do not even understand half of it. Her voice started to shake. I thought he had it under control. He said he did. I trusted him. The irony did not need to be said out loud. And now, she said, her voice dropping, I do not have anything. I do not have a place. I do not have support. I do not have anyone. She looked at me, then really looked at me. You are the only person I can come to. I said nothing. She took a step closer. I know I messed up, she said quickly. I know I hurt you, but we are still family. There it was. The word again. Family. I have nowhere else to go, she added. Mom is overwhelmed. She cannot help. She said maybe you would understand, that you always do. I felt something settle inside me, not anger, not pain, clarity. You are asking me for help, I said slowly. Yes. After everything. Her eyes filled with tears. I did not know what else to do. I watched her for a long moment. This was the same person who had sat in my living room, who had laughed with my husband, who had walked past me without a word when everything fell apart. This was also the person who had found my father before I ever had the chance to take in what she could and disappeared. And now she was here, because she had run out of options. I need money, she said quietly, or a place to stay, just for a little while, until I figure things out. I did not answer right away. I let the silence sit between us. She shifted under it, uncomfortable. Please say something. I looked at her. You did not come here because you care about me. She flinched. That is not true. It is, I said. You came here because you have nowhere else to go. Her face tightened. You think I would only come to you when I need something? Yes. The word was simple, honest. She shook her head. You do not understand what I am going through. I let out a quiet breath. I do. Her eyes widened slightly. I know what it feels like to lose everything, to not have a place to go, to realize that the people you trusted are not there when it matters. I held her gaze. I lived it. She swallowed but did not look away. Then you should understand why I am here. I shook my head. I understand why you are here, I said. That does not mean I am going to fix it for you. Her expression shifted, panic creeping in. So that is it. You are just going to turn your back on me. I thought about that for a second. No, I said. I am choosing not to step back into something that hurt me. Her voice rose slightly. We are sisters. That does not give you the right to use me when it is convenient. She stared at me like she did not recognize the person standing in front of her. You have changed. I have. Another silence. Then she said it softer this time. I do not have anyone else. The words hung there heavy. For a brief moment I felt something pull at me. Old habits, old roles, the instinct to step in to make things easier, to carry something that was not mine. Then I let it go. You made choices, I said quietly. So did I. This is where they led us. Tears slipped down her face. I am sorry. I believed that she meant it, but it did not change anything. I hope you figure things out, I said. Her shoulders slumped. You are really not going to help me? No. The word felt solid, final. She stood there for a moment longer, like she was waiting for me to change my mind. I did not. Eventually, she nodded slowly. Okay. She picked up her bag, adjusted the strap, and stepped back. I guess I will figure something out. I watched her turn and walk away. This time, I did not feel like something was being taken from me. It felt like something was being returned, myself. The legal situation with Daniel and Emily continued without me. I heard bits and pieces, lawsuits filed, payments demanded, assets seized. I did not follow it closely. It was not my story anymore. Months later, everything settled into something new. The trust was finalized, the paperwork completed, the structure clear. With Marcus's help, I made decisions slowly, carefully, not driven by fear this time, but by intention. I bought a small house on the edge of town, nothing extravagant, just enough space, a yard where Walter could run, a place that felt quiet, stable, real. The first night I slept there, I woke up in the middle of the night and just listened. No tension, no waiting for something to go wrong, just silence. The kind that does not feel empty, the kind that feels like peace. Sometimes I still think about my father, about the years we lost, the conversations we never had. I keep his letter in a drawer by my bed. I read it when I need to remind myself that not everything I believed was true, that not everything I lost was because I was not enough. One evening, I sat on the back porch watching the sun go down, Walter resting his head on my knee. The air was warm still. For the first time in a long time, I was not thinking about what had been taken from me. I was thinking about what I had built, not out of revenge, not out of anger, but out of understanding. I did not need to destroy anyone to move forward. I just needed to stop letting them have a place in my life. If there is one thing I learned through all of this, it is that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not to fight, not to win, but to walk away and never look back. And if you have ever had to choose between holding on to people who hurt you or choosing yourself, then you already know how hard that decision can be. But you also know how much it can change everything.